What is the most down bad thing you have done out of pure horniness? I went down on my cousin during the quarantine. My work dropped me down to part-time because of the virus, so I worked 10-hour days on Monday and Friday. My cousin Elizabeth, or Liz, who is currently attending her first year of college near me, instead of returning home to an already packed, loud, and chaotic house with her 5 younger siblings, asked if she could stay in the spare bedroom of my 2-bedroom apartment. I was hesitant at first for financial reasons. My wife and I finalized our divorce almost 3 months ago, and meeting rent on half a salary instead of 2 and feeding myself was going to be rough, let alone feeding my uncle's kid as well. However, my uncle is in a much better place financially and offered to cover my rent, all of it, for the next 2 months, even if this situation blows over, and less time for letting Liz stay with me. Some of her siblings have health issues, and I think he was afraid she might carry something back into their house. So, 2 weeks ago, I saw my younger cousin for the first time in about 8 years. She was 11 the last time I saw her. She was lanky and awkward, like a small girl growing into a spider's body, all limbs. She's always been really sweet, helping her parents with her younger siblings, giving up weekends so her parents could get away and have a mini vacation in the middle of the year. She likes to bake and has an affinity for remembering people's favorite foods and allergies. Overall, she just seems to be thinking about others first all the time. Super cool kid. In the 8 years I hadn't seen her, she grew a fair bit taller, probably about 5 feet 10 inches, and kept a slim figure. Strong arms and calloused hands from rock climbing and bouldering almost every weekend, heavy brown hair she usually wears in a braid, and the same bright blue eyes she's always had. She didn't bring much with her, just her laptop, her Switch, and a suitcase full of clothes. I keep the house pretty tidy, so her modest number of belongings didn't crowd the apartment at all. I thought it would be awkward before she showed up, but it turns out we share a good bit in common. We listen to the same kinds of music, enjoy playing board games together, and didn't seem to mind the odd day where we just entirely ignored each other and did our own thing. Movies became a nightly tradition pretty quickly. Around 6, we would each pick a movie we thought the other person might like, watch one, make dinner, and watch the other. Honestly, my favorite part of Liz being there was the help in the kitchen. My ex-wife grew up eating cereal, junk food, and frozen dinner. While I had my fair share of junk food and pre-made pizza, I also ate a ton of good home-cooked meals, and so had Liz. Admittedly, it was usually leftovers with something we made fresh, like rolls to go with leftover casserole, stuff like that, but making dinner with Liz each night was the beginning of the end for me. I felt myself reaching out to touch her lower back like I had with the few times my wife and I actually worked together in the kitchen, or caught myself just staring at the back of her neck, her hair tied up while she focused on some mundane task like chopping up an onion, and resisting the urge to gently kiss her on the shoulder. Last Monday was the first time I caught an idea that she might be interested in me. After the first movie of the night, Liz left to take a shower to wash off a run she had taken earlier that day while I threw together a pizza. Right after her shower, she surprised me by walking into the living room with just her towel on and asked me how the pizza was turning out. I'd like to lie to you and say that I kept my surprise hidden and acted as if there wasn't a mostly naked 18-year-old suddenly standing in front of me, but after looking her up and down, my eyes lingering on her bare shoulders, then on her small breasts framed by the towel, the hem of the arguably too short for her height towel that ended just below her hips, and all the long, sculpted legs that followed, each location for a few moments too long, I tripped over my eloquent reply of good like a professional middle schooler. Liz just smirked, gave me a crooked smile, and walked back to the bathroom saying, "Well, it smells really good." It took me a while to regather myself after seeing so much skin, but I was able to rebuild my composure and push thoughts of certain barely covered areas into a small but sturdy cage and adjust my pants. As I was pulling the pizza out, Liz walked back into the living room, thankfully wearing more clothes, an old baggy hoodie that was one of her favorites and some dark black running shorts. She sat down on the couch and buried her nose in her phone while I finished up in the kitchen. Thankfully, it seemed, she was not too concerned with my lingering eyes, and I tried to forget the recent image of so much perfect skin. I cut us a few slices of still hot pizza, brought them out, and started up the movie thinking it was an odd prank she was pulling or just a joke to throw me off, while a small, but loud part of my mind hoped it wasn't a joke at all. Partway through the movie I noticed Liz was back on her phone off and on, probably texting one of her quarantine friends from college, but I didn't pay much attention to her and tried to focus on the movie. At some point she stretched out on the couch, head on one arm rest and legs bent, and her feet pressed up against my leg. She kept shifting her legs trying to get comfortable until I asked, "Want to stretch them out?" and patted the tops of my legs. She just smiled at me and stretched them out, letting her feet rest on my lap. I instinctively shifted my hands out from under my blanket and started massaging her cold feet before I realized what I was doing and froze. I slowly looked over and saw her staring at me, a questioning, but not uncomfortable look on her face. I used to massage Nicole's, ex-wife, feet all the time like this, just instinct, sorry. And I started to desperately search for a new place for my hands. Liz spoke up for the first time since the movie started, laughing a little as she spoke. "I don't mind at all, it actually feels really nice. I went on a long run while you were at work, so you won't hear any complaints from me." And so, I kept massaging her feet, listening to her breathing, and paying almost no attention to the movie. Eventually, her feet were as warm as my hands and I started moving down her lower legs, giving her calves some attention. This elicited a light moan from Liz, and she said, "Why would Nicole leave this?" I'm sure it was louder than she expected because I saw her head shoot up and look at me to see if I reacted. I just glanced over and gave her a weak smile but didn't comment. I could feel her tense under my touch though, she felt bad for saying it. I turned the movie down a little and said without looking over, "She and I just wanted different things. I don't mean to overshare, but we both wanted kids and it turns out that I can't." We talked about adoption, but after a while I could tell she wanted her own kids. Eventually she started talking about finding a sperm donor, but I was fairly adamant about just adopting. I felt like it was a sign that we should adopt and she very much didn't. We found out about a year ago and that was kind of the beginning of the end. It was pretty quiet for a while as we both just quietly watched the rest of the movie and I continued rubbing her feet and legs. At this point I had successfully forgotten about the towel incident. The movie ended and credits were scrolling when Liz pulled her feet off my lap and sat up, stretching long arms arching above her tiled back head. Her neck incredibly exposed and amazingly bare in the low light of the mostly dark living room with her hair in her braid behind her head. She stood up, shuffled over closer to me, and sat down, our legs touching through the blanket I still had over my leg. Without looking over to me, just looking forward, she said, "I'm really glad you're letting me stay with you. It's nice being in a peaceful place for once. And I'm sorry I made you think about Nicole, I really didn't mean to." His voice trailed off. I glanced over slightly, just barely turning my head. "Don't worry about it, even though the divorce finalized about 2 months ago we both knew it was coming for a while, so I've had a lot of time to process everything and move on. It's not that painful anymore." We sat in relative silence as the credits scrolled, just the music behind the credits filled the void, but it was strangely peaceful. We didn't need to fill the silence and it was really nice just sitting with someone who clearly cared. Eventually Liz broke the silence, shifting in her seat and turning to face me directly. "Thanks for the massage." I started to turn to face her and make some lame comment, but she reached across my chest with one arm, behind my neck with the other, pulled my head gently sideways, and kissed me on the cheek. It felt really nice. Her breath on my neck as she moved closer to me, the surprise contact of just a simple touch across my chest, and her warm lips pressed against my cheek sent a cool fire running down my legs and I could feel myself reacting. Thank God for blankets and semi-constrictive jeans. She lingered for a few moments and I could tell she was staring at me, searching for a reaction. I knew I couldn't stay there for long and make a good decision, so I gently took and moved her hands off my neck, stood up, and said, "I still need shower, mind putting the pizza away?" Liz gave me a sad smile in the low light of the living room and nodded. I very pointedly did not run to the bathroom, turned the shower on cold, and stripped out of my clothes. I suppose now is a good time to describe what I saw staring back at me in the mirror. I'm about 6 even, keep my head shaved because it started getting thin in high school and got very thin after, and I have a decent beard that I take pretty good care of to compensate. My body shows that I bike to work on nice days, hit the work gym through the winter, and go on the occasional hike, but I also drink too many lattes and really like good pasta. Prime dad bod from what I understand. My huge megalodon had relaxed a little bit from Liz's kiss, but was still resting at about half-mast, hoping for release. I jumped into the shower and turned my chest into the cold water to hopefully knock some sense into my foggy head. I'm used to taking cold showers because the water heater in this apartment sucks and Nicole always took long showers before I took mine, but it helped dull my senses and helped shove some of my thoughts of Liz down. I had just started to lather up after putting conditioner in my beard when I heard Liz knock, crack open the bathroom door, and ask, "Mind if I brush my teeth real fast?" Without waiting for much of a response from me, she opened the door and started brushing her teeth. Once she finished and rinsed her mouth out, she asked, "Are you taking a cold shower right now?" The lack of steam and cooler bathroom had given me away. "Yes?" I said with a question mark evident on my voice. "Why a cold shower?" she asked. "They help me get to sleep," I lied, "I'm not sure exactly why." She seemed to accept my lame excuse and left the bathroom as I finished lathering up my body. I rinsed my beard and the rest of my body, toweled off, wrapped myself up, brushed my teeth, and sneaked into the kitchen to grab a glass of water. I figured that Liz was already in bed or in her room, but I found her playing her Switch on the TV with the volume low. I tried to play it off and just get my glass of water and head to bed, but I could tell Liz was watching me as I walked into the kitchen, grabbed my water, and made my way back down the hallway. "How the turntables," she laughed at me as I made my way down the hallway. Despite the cold shower, thoughts of Liz kept me up for at least an hour, but I was able to get to sleep eventually.